And welcome in to Shoot the Gap. I am your host, Nate Markham. I was waiting for Jorge to take over for some unknown reason. I'm so used to him hosting the other shows, the 4 hours worth of podcasts that we have here at Fantasy and Frames, that I was just going to concede to him, but I didn't. I at the last minute remembered, hey, dipshit, you're hosting this thing. Start talking and get excited because it is about 22 and a half hours away from actual kickoff, actual games that mean something. No longer the posturing of who we think, what we think, why we think, or how we think. Fellas, it's football time. How we doing?
I don't know. As a host, nice job as a host. Pointed to someone to ask. Nice job.
I don't know. I want everybody. I want chaos. This is IDP podcast. We need chaos. Well, there will be no assignments. It's just
if anybody was watching wrestling tonight, MJF is now public enemy number 1 in Buffalo. Yes. If anybody watched, he came. You're muted, Jorge. We can't hear you.
He is not watching. What he's saying is that no worries, technical issues aside, this is the best IDP podcast. Starting off hot as can be.
Start off with a bang. Fantastic.
Absolutely. So backtrack just a little. If you're listening for the first time, this is Shoot the Gap, the IDP podcast for the Fantasy and Frames podcast network. Joining me, as always, the 3 horsemen of IDP. We have the mute Jorge Edwards, the Titan, Hollywood Titan, and smooth jazz Mike Wohlert. Jorge is gone. Finally, we're down to 3. The way it should always have been. We have an excellent episode this week. What we're going to do as we've led into the season has been a bunch of rankings, a bunch of conversation, some projections, predictions, and overall just been a lot of fun. Now the grind starts. And so throughout the season, what we're going to do is we're going to take, initially as the season progresses, look at some news, notes, what's going on. We're going to look at some plays and fades. That'll be the first segment. So first down will be the plays and fades segment where each one of us will take a position. We'll pick a player that we think's in line for a big week and someone that we're fading. It can be your defensive lineman, 1, 2, 3, linebacker, 1, 2, 3, just someone that we specifically have our eye on or want to take our eyes off of. And then we're bringing back our Oklahoma drill, wonderfully, by the way, titled and named by Mike Wohlert. Last year, we had so much fun doing it. We figured we're going to do that again. And that's going to pit analyst to analyst. And it's going to be a who would you rather start in a flex type position. And so it gets rather interesting. And we've decided that it's like we're going to kind of vote against each other, determine who has the more compelling argument. But at the same time, I think maybe we'd like to send it out to the listeners or the readers or the followers in general, and maybe have a Twitter vote just to see who wins. And so I think without further ado, we're going to see if Jorge is ready to go. Can I hear that? Yep, I hear the lips smacking from that delicious Blue Moon, I believe it is.
It is the Leinenkugel Oktoberfest.
Oh, Leinenkugel Oktoberfest. The maker of Summer Shanty, one of my favorite beers. Actually, it's Shandy, not Shanty, like a shanty town. Even though when you drink about 13 of them, you feel like you belong in a shanty town. And guys, anybody got any news or notes right now necessarily that really stands out? Mike, you have a finger on the pulse. What's going on around the league right now, IDP wise?
I don't know. What do you think? I pay attention to IDP all the time? I mean, geez, I do have a life outside of this. Jeez, oh man. Yeah. Just use me for my IDP knowledge. I see how it is. Whatever.
Correct. Sexy moves and solid.
Well, we're getting a lot of back and forth between Darius Leonard, Shaq Leonard, in terms of what he's doing. You've seen he put in a full practice, and Frank Reich is saying, well, we don't know, he needs more practice, and now we don't know if he's going to play. So only thing I can say, if you're a Darius Leonard owner, just buckle up, sit tight.
Yep. Hey, good positive news though that I did see that I was very I'd say happy to witness is that in that video that I even posted today, it looked like he had good push off the ankle, because it's not just the back, it's the back and the ankle that we got to worry about. And it really seems like he says it's the best he's felt since 2019, which is always good to hear. No one ever wants to hear I feel worse than I did last year, anything crazy like that. But positive news. I'm excited for his season. Did you guys move him up or down this whole week as it's gone along?
I mean, in terms of my weekly rankings, I have him as my seventh. I'll be 7. So that he won't move either. He's not going to move either way. Obviously, he'll move if he's out. Then that would be kind of stupid to rank him if he's out. But
right, exactly.
But yeah, he's still in my top 10 for the week if he plays. If he plays, you have to play him. I mean, he's just like one of those. He's one of those guys. He's like a Christian McCaffrey or whomever. If someone is questionable and they play, you have to play him.
Exactly. Hollywood, let me ask you a question. If they announce that he is out, are you putting Franklin in at all, or are you even just bypassing that position whatsoever and just maybe hedging towards Bobby Okereke a little bit more?
I think that's what I would do, actually, is hedge towards Okereke, because I didn't even rank Leonard, and just because of the injury and the mind games, right? What are they doing? Is he playing? So I just felt it was better to leave him unranked, and if he plays, then you like Mike said, you just throw it. You got to play him if he plays, right? So
exactly.
I think I'm staying away from Franklin and Speed and those guys, and I'm just going to go towards Okereke.
Yeah, that's kind of been mine. Jorge, any difference in opinion there?
It's pronounced Okereke, actually.
Oh,
listen, Mr.
Yes.
Technical.
I thought it was Okereke, honestly.
Well, it's one of those 3. And watch it be a 4th option that we didn't take into consideration. So no, I would also fade towards Okereke, or however you want to pronounce his last name.
Bobby.
There you go. We'll go with his first name. Totally think about that. Yeah.
Yep, they have 2 of them.
They have 2 first names?
Yeah, 2. Well, unless you're Tom Brady, then you got 2 middle names, a first name, and a junior on the end. Because, why he has 2 middle names is beyond me, but he does.
How about that? Fun fact. Fun facts galore here on Shoot the Gap. But I think that, honestly, there's not much. We'll have more news next week, I promise. I hope that it's nothing devastating. But I'm excited to get into the plays and fades, because I think that's what everybody really wants. They need to know if you're starting, a defensive lineman, linebacker, defensive back, an outside linebacker / edge, and you're starting 2 to 3 at a position, and you're really stressing over each one of those. I think we'll touch on a little bit of each one of those. So, Mike, starting at the defensive line position, who's a play that you're pretty hyped about?
Well, I like Trey Hendrickson a ton this week. I've got him as my DL4. Really good matchup against Pittsburgh. If you watched any of their offensive line this preseason, it's very offensive. They are not doing any of their quarterbacks any favors, which is probably why they didn't start Kenny Pickett. Why would you put your quarterback, potentially of the future, behind that offensive line? So Hendrickson should line up a little bit, line up most of his pass rush snaps over David Moore. Moore allowed 3 sacks and 7 total quarterback pressures in the preseason. And it's not a very small sample size, not a very big sample size. So over the course of that small sample size, he was very bad. Hendrickson is a pressure monster. I think he was tied for 3rd or 4th in total pressures last year with 75. He had a 16.5% pressure rate and a 32% pass rush win rate. So everything is shaping up for Hendrickson to have a really good game.
I love Hendrickson. I've been a fan. Even I felt like I was on an island a little bit when he first came over to Cincinnati, because I think the idea was that it was more of a system in New Orleans that he just took advantage of, maybe the attention to Cameron Jordan, whatever it might have been. But I'm really happy that Trey
contract year.
Exactly.
The contract year.
That was, all those things were mentioned. I mean, every scenario that you can think of was brought up. And I mean, here, maybe rightfully so, but either way, you progress on. And so if you love Trey, who are you saying nay to?
I'm probably, if you have Jonathan Greenard, I'm probably benching him this week. He's my DL 32. Really good, tough matchup against a pretty good offensive line with Indianapolis. No matter if Houston is in their base or nickel, Greenard is probably going to be lining up over the tackle, which will probably put him on Matt Pryor, who I think is going to be their left tackle. PFF graded him 25th among tackles last season. He didn't allow a sack in 241 pass rush snaps or pass block snaps, nor did he allow a sack this preseason. So he's coming in looking really solid. I mean, he might get a handful of tackles off of Jonathan Taylor here and there, but I'm not expecting him to have really much success against Matt Ryan and the Colts offensive line.
Yeah, I feel the same. I mean, if there's the one thing that personally I think enough people take advantage of, like yourself and the four of us here, that defensive line matchup is something that it has been, in my opinion, underspoken for quite some time. I feel like we as the IDP community is really bringing it to the forefront, and it makes such a difference in all aspects. I mean, it affects the offensive side of the ball. It affects both obviously the defensive side of the ball, and it has trickle down effects to everything. So here, if there's one area that we can cover exclusively well this year, if it's the matchups on the offensive and defensive line, might not be the sexiest positions in the world, but I think that there's more value to be gained from that than talking sometimes about, well, the Steelers did allow the 13th most passing touchdowns in the red zone to the tight end position in the third quarter. I mean, that's great, but at the end of the day, that you're nitpicking little individual things. This is 65 times those two are going to butt heads, and who's going to win? So that's dynamite, Mike. Keep that damn good work up, and it kind of parlays into a little bit of my plays as well. My play of the week, if there's one. I think Shaq Barrett's in a great position, and the hardest thing for me is this outside linebacker position. It's hard because if you're in a specific scoring format where you don't get defensive line eligibility and you just get linebacker, outside linebackers, man, they suck sometimes because it's big play. You needed something splashy. And I think that's what Shaq Barrett's going to do. I think he has that splash upside this weekend. It's a solid matchup against the Cowboys. The Cowboys offensive line's decimated with injuries lately. I mean, here's the thing. They're talking about going more 12 personnel. They bring in Jason Peters. They have all these just, indicators that they know that their defense or their offensive line is woeful at best. And the matchup right now. So Shaq Barrett does bounce back and forth. He's not the primary, just straight left outside linebacker or the right outside. He does bounce back. At least last year he did, more so than in previous years. And so I think the matchup most likely will be against Terrence Steele. If it's not Terrence Steele, either way, you're still piggybacking over to, unfortunately, I would say, fortunately or unfortunately, it's a Smith. It's just not Tyron Smith. And so there's matchup-based situation for Shaq Barrett to have tons of pressures, kind of like you were talking about earlier, extremely high pressures, high pressure rate, every superlative down the line. It's Tampa. And let's be honest, Dallas is going to want to run, but I don't think they're going to be able to. I think they're going to have to get back to the pass because they said with Tyron Smith out, Zeke is an inferior runner. The team as a whole, yards per attempt or yards per carry was like top 5 with Smith. Without him, they were at 31st. So
clearly they're going to need to pivot to something else. On the other side of that, if I'm fading, man, Hassan Reddick, I love the player. I don't know if I love the matchup. And like I said earlier, for an outside linebacker to score well as a linebacker, he's going to need the big plays. And I don't know what role in rotation Hassan Reddick's going to have with Philly. It seems like they, with their amount of players they have on that defensive line, will want to rotate, keep everybody fresh. I know that's probably more the interior than the outside linebacker edge rushers, but it wouldn't shock me in the least to see them getting a good rotation going as it progresses. And as much as I love Reddick, I don't see much of a high tackle floor necessarily for him this week. It just seems like it's kind of a boom or bust week to start off. And especially like we've said, with these linebackers, the way that they're designed, he's a DL1 or borderline 1-2 for me. But as a linebacker, he's outside my 4 or 5 threshold. Or move it inside linebacker. Tell some plays and fades you got there.
So my play is a linebacker for those who are relatively new to the IDP scene. And then for those who are not new, you've heard the name Cody Barton, linebacker, Seattle Seahawks. Look, he had a great 2 games, the final 2 games of the season. And I say that jokingly, but I also say that seriously. He had in those 2 games 19 total tackles, 12 of which were solo. Look, he's not blowing down the doors in terms of like great efficiency here and there. But when you look at those 2 games, he was the LB7 overall in run stopping percentage, which is great for your inside linebackers. You want them to get to those running backs and get those tackles and have the tackle upside. The Seahawks did not address inside linebacker during the draft or free agency. So it is going to be him and Jordan Brooks manning the interior of the Seahawks defensive line. And you have the 2-headed running back monster of Denver coming to Lumen Field on Monday Night Football. You have an offense that will want to run the ball a lot, and you have linebackers who will want to tackle said running backs. I think just the volume alone is great for Cody Barton this week. In terms of a fade, so this is going to probably, jab at some Browns fans out there, but that's Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Look, I get it. He's very athletic. He has great sideline-to-sideline speed, but we're not talking about him chasing down Marlon Mack or old Clinton Portis. We're talking about Christian McCaffrey, a healthy Christian McCaffrey. And as much as we want to talk about how great Joe can be, let's not forget he had a 24.1% missed tackle rate when playing against the pass. That obviously needs to get a lot better. And so when you are playing against a running back that can be used out of the backfield and in so many ways, like a McCaffrey is, I just feel he could do a lot better than JOK this week.
Yeah, you sure know how to build up Mike, talk about Cody Barton, get his juices flowing, and then kick him right in the junk and beat up on his Browns. But Mike, let me ask you a question. Since it is one of your plays, what's your take on JOK this week? Are you down on him just a little bit kind of as well for the same reasons, or do you see something different or anything?
Well, I'm taking a wait-and-see approach on the whole Browns linebacker situation. I have a feeling he's going to be the 3-down guy, but Stefanski and Joe Woods have said, you know what, we're playing everybody. Jacob, Anthony Walker's at the top of the depth chart, but he said Jacob Phillips is going to play a lot. Mm-hmm. All of these guys are going to play a lot. I'm hoping JOK does lead the team in snaps. I mean, you brought him in for his speed and his athleticism to get to guys like Lamar Jackson and to stop these guys out of the backfield. So in terms of his sideline to sideline speed, he's unmatched on this team. And in terms of if he catches passes out of the backfield, he'll almost be similar to a running back. So he'll be able to catch him from whether he's running as a running back or catching the ball as a running back out of the backfield. So I think is going to be needed. I feel comfortable as an LB2 this week. They know Baker's tendencies. They know how he plays. Mm-hmm. So I think the advantage is, probably to the defense in this one. So it's just the rotation. I mean, yeah, I can say JOK is going to be a 3-down guy, but honestly, I have no idea how this rotation is going to come out. They're keeping everything very close to the vest. And in terms of, they're just basically saying, yeah, everybody's going to play. We've got really good linebackers and guys who can do all sorts of different things. So that would be more my concern, is more of the snaps and usage than really anything else.
Right, exactly. I think that, and I have him ranked with just what you're saying. I have him as a low end LB2, high end LB3, and I feel like that's that position, those marks where if you drafted him, you probably have him as your, you
probably drafted him as your second linebacker,
exactly, like a high end LB2, and you maybe have somebody else. I think most people drafted Cody Barton probably as a 3-4, maybe he's a 4, and they'll start him as their LB2 over JOK this week. Personally speaking, we shall see exactly how that unfolds. Hey, Hollywood, why don't you give us some defensive backs? I got to tell you, I'm not shocked at all by the play, and I love it. I can't wait to hear you talk about our guy. Let it roll.
Yeah, so the play for this week is Xavier McKinney of the Giants going up against the Titans. I have him as high as my DB3 overall for this week. I just love this matchup against Tennessee, who they're still trying to figure out what they're doing with this receiving core. I know they got Robert Woods and they got Nick Westbrook-Akina in there, but they brought in Josh Gordon. So that tells me that they're not completely sold on what they're doing out there, right? So with that, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, right? They're going to want to use Derrick Henry, pound rock, which is what they've always been known for. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities there for McKinney to come down and play in the box more, because let's not forget, they don't have Blake Martinez no more. And I just think with what they're going to try to do, kind of the same thing what the Giants is going to do, right? They're going to run Saquon and try to take the ball out of Daniel Jones' hands, limit mistakes. Tennessee's going to try to do the same thing until they can figure out what they're doing with this receiving core overall. So I think McKinney's going to have a huge day.
Let me ask you guys a question. Start with you, Jorge. Is it fair that when you look at a situation like this with McKinney, let's say that he doesn't even play as much in the box as what we would love to see, but even playing deep, when they have Tay Crowder and they've got a young maybe Micah McFadden, however they want to do the linebacking situation, and they have some pressure up front, but they could leave McKinney probably even deep, and he would still see a 6+ tackle floor with the amount of run. Is that fair to assess as well? Where even if he plays up in the box even more, then it's even higher, like Hollywood was saying, maybe a DB3, number 3 overall with the potential.
Oh, yeah. Any defensive back that plays closer to the line of scrimmage has more snaps in the box, because immediately you're basically another linebacker on the field you have to stop the run or the short to intermediate throws. So, yeah, absolutely. He has that upside. Moving him back, however, I don't know. I see, there's been some circles, there's been some talk in some circles that Julian Love may have a role to play in this defense and play more at the line of scrimmage than McKinney. So if McKinney moves back, well, somebody's got to move up, in my opinion, and that could be Julian Love. So it'd be very interesting to see this week what happens with McKinney's usage and whether that's going to be impacted too much if he's playing too much in coverage or closer to the line of scrimmage this week.
Xavier McKinney is a play. Hollywood, who's the fade this week?
It's Trevon Diggs, the Dallas cornerback, right? Everybody knows the hot start he got off to last year, which was just unreal. He's not going to replicate that again. You're not going to have 7 interceptions in the first 7-8 games, whatever it was. I just don't see that happening, especially against the Tom Brady team, right? Now we know Brady has been prone to throw the interception every now and then, but he's smart enough. He's going to stay away from somebody that talented. And they've got too many receivers on Tampa Bay, so Diggs is not going to be able to cover them all, right? He's a corner for one, so he's already kind of down the list, but I had him all the way down at 43 this week. I just think they're going to go away from him. They've got Fournette with the running game. They're going to do a lot of different stuff, so that's my move down.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think they're going to go away from him. I think they're just going to throw at him just because he does. He gave up the most yards in coverage, and he's got the interceptions because of volume. I don't think he's I don't consider him a Jalen Ramsey cover corner. I mean, he gets beat way. I mean, he just gets beat way too much. He goes for the pick and gets burned.
I compare him to Janoris Jenkins. I think that's who he reminds me of. Is maybe but Janoris never had quite the upside that Diggs has. But that was what Jackrabbit did, and there was pre-Jackrabbit days. Is he would pounce on everything and he would get burnt for so much, but at the same time is when he didn't, that's when he would exploit, and pick up I can't say pick six every time, but yeah, he was very similar. Maybe that might be a bad correlation between the two, because I don't see Janoris being drafted anywhere, or did not anymore, and maybe Trayvon won't this year at all. And that's decisions you have to make sometimes, is picking and choosing one or the other. And there's other ways, and more, I'd say, monetarily beneficial ways you can do that. Is, Jorge, you can use Underdog.
Yeah, that's right. If you use the promo code FRAME over at Underdog Fantasy, you get a 100% match up to $100 free using the promo code FRAMES. Look, we're talking about some prop bets now. Best ball season is kind of going away. But no, it's going to be fun. You get to answer 5 questions correctly and bring home a lot of cash. So I feel like there's not a lot of downside in that. The props are, I'm not going to say they're the most difficult props out there. So you could actually have a really good chance of winning some cash here. It's not like some other websites where it's a little bit more difficult. They get a little tricky with how they're phrasing things and whatnot. No, Underdog is very straight and to the point, and it's a great app. It's a great platform for some DFS gambling on the side. So again, head over there, use the promo code FRAMES, and you get a 100% match up to $100 on your initial deposit.
Well, with that being said, before you spend your money at Underdog, invest in your participant in this week's Oklahoma Drill.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our weekly segment, the Oklahoma Drill. Tell me, is your jockstrap on tight? Good, because it better be. Hut, hut.
Wow, that's dynamite. The dramatic lead into that was so worth it.
I see the budget wasn't there for voiceovers.
It was not. The budget was free Audacity downloading. That's what it was.
Wow.
No Michael Buffer this year. Sorry, guys.
Well, that was worth the price of admission. So if you just want to quit listening now, I totally understand.
It's going downhill from here. I don't know what to say.
Wow. I hope not, because I think that he keeps saying that I've been asking for that. Now, I don't know what you read between the lines when I said I would love to have some dynamite drops. My guess is we weren't on the same page, but maybe we'll get on the same page with these actual Oklahoma drills. And we'll start with the first matchup with you, Jorge, against Mike in a defensive line Oklahoma drill. Heads or tails, Mike?
Tails.
Tails never fails. Do you want to go first or second?
I'll go second.
All right. Jorge, it's on you. I didn't even flip a coin. I just pretty much was going to make you choose. So. But the budget went to that voice drop. We don't have any more coins.
That's right. The one coin went towards it. Exactly.
Cool.
So when we're talking about these, Oklahoma drills, and we're talking about these players, we're talking about players that kind of fall into like the 2s and 3 ranges when it comes to like a DL2 or DL3 or LB2, LB3, so on and so forth. And so the issue with finding that information is that, depending on your scoring and depending on which website you go to, what some people might consider a DL1 is a DL2 or a DL2 is a DL1 or so on and so forth. So we decided to take away all the ambiguity and are basically going off of the ECR, weekly ECR for Fantasy Pros. So according to the week 1 ECR for Fantasy Pros, the DL15 this week is Max Crosby, who I'll be championing his cause here. Last year, with a league-leading win rate of 26.8% and a pressure rate of 16.9%, he'll find himself lining up against Trey Pipkins of the Chargers at right tackle. Who? Exactly. Now, I could tell you all the superlatives about Max Crosby all you want. Chances are you already know he had a great year last year, got that contract, very happy for him. And now he's taking on Trey Pipkins. In true pass blocking situations, Pipkins, that is, in 2021, he allowed 30 pressures, which would have been tied for the 9th worst pass blocking lineman all of last year. He tied with Jonah Williams with 30. Jonah Williams, the left tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals, who played 16 games and allowed 30 pressures. Pipkins allowed 30 pressures in 6 games. Yikes. So now you have Chandler Jones anchoring the other side of the defensive line here for Las Vegas. Look for Crosby, just like he had last year with Yannick Ngakoue when he was there, finding a lot more one-on-one matchups, which ultimately will lead to more quarterback hits and sacks. I feel this week, for fantasy leagues that incorporate quarterback hits as a scoring metric like ours does, that's great. The pressure rate is probably going to stay the same. The opportunity for more fantasy points is going to be there, or for leagues that are kind of like big play heavy leagues or fantasy pros type of leagues when it comes to their scoring settings. Again, a great play across any format. Max Crosby is the guy you want to start this week.
Very nice argument. Very nice argument. Now, on the other side of the coin, the one coin we have, Mike will defend Montez Sweat of your Washington Commanders.
So yeah, it was interesting going through some of Pipkins' numbers. He actually gave up pressures, but surprisingly, when it comes to fantasy pressures, he didn't give up any sacks, which I found very interesting. But anyway, I'm not talking about Trey Pipkins or Max Crosby. I'm talking about Montez Sweat. He's my DL6 for the week. I'm not sold on Jacksonville as this up and coming potential juggernaut. Everybody says Trevor Lawrence is this generational or this. I don't know. I'm not seeing it yet. I'm not buying Christian Kirk as this wide receiver one. I just don't see it. And with Montez Sweat in there, Chase Young's not there. Well, who cares? Chase Young didn't really play much last year and didn't really generate a whole lot of pressure last year anyway. So when I looked at it this year, even just in recent memory, over the preseason, Sweat generated a 23% pressure rate and a 25% win rate in the preseason, which I believe led to a sack, and he also had a quarterback hit. In terms of Chase Young, he still has Jonathan Allen, still has Daron Payne. Those are some pretty solid interior linemen that are going to plug up a lot of traffic, plug up a lot of gaps. He's also one of the top graded run stoppers according to PFF. He's got an impact at the line of scrimmage. He had 14 tackles that resulted short in a first down and had a 1.4 average depth of tackles. So he is right around that line of scrimmage. I like the matchup opposite Jawan Taylor in those true pass rush situations. 25 total quarterback pressures and 4 sacks and 318 pass block snaps. And in his career, Jawan Taylor has been responsible for 23 sacks and 13 quarterback hits. James Robinson, average in pass blocking. Travis Etienne, graded below average in pass blocking. I mean, it was only a handful of pass block snaps, but I do not see Travis Etienne or James Robinson being any type of roadblock to Montez Sweat. And you've got Kendall Fuller and William Jackson, who are pretty decent cover corners who can give the Washington front four some time to get to the quarterback. So I've got Montez Sweat as my DL6. I think you can plug him in as a DL1 this week, and I think you should be able to feast on Jacksonville this week.
Sir, both excellent breakdowns of two, I think, underrated defensive line according to Fantasy Pros consensus. Hollywood, let me ask you a question. Number one, where did you have Max Crosby ranked in your rankings going into this battle?
Oh, shit, you're catching me off guard.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought you would.
Well, I switched screens. Sorry. I switched screens.
Okay.
I think this battle's very intriguing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Between Crosby and Montez Sweat. I think Montez has the better matchup, in my opinion. But it's hard to overlook having Chandler Jones playing opposite Max Crosby. Now I know he had, as Jorge said, he had Yannick, but Chandler Jones is much better player in my opinion than Yannick. So that makes up for a lot. I'm trying to find this real quick. Sorry.
I could very easily just went to fantasyandframes.com.
I've got Max as my DL3.
Okay.
If anybody,
the reason
cares.
I care, I do care.
We all care, Mike. Come on.
I do, but I asked for this reason is because in these battles, one thing I want to look at is whose argument would make me change my rankings on that player the most. And
Okay, so
I have Max. Go ahead.
I have Max at 13. Or no, 17.
Okay.
Sorry, 17.
Okay. Where do you have Montez Sweat?
I have Montez at 7.
Gotcha. So, after hearing these arguments, would you move either of those two players up as a result?
I think where I have Montez, I like that. I think that's about right.
Okay.
Jorge did make a good case for Max, right? So I do like that. I guess if I was moving one up, it might be Max, but I don't know that it would be ahead of Montez Sweat because I still like Montez for the week.
All right. And that's the thing is with this, I don't think it has to be necessarily a, winner versus loser as much as would you then make that switch into your flex? So I ask you, Twitter fam, Facebook fam, Spotify, what else we on, Jorge? Pretty much everything, right? Every podcast network.
YouTube.
We on LimeWire?
We are on LimeWire. We are on.
You don't have to download us illegally, Mike. They can just put it in their normal platform.
Exactly. Now do that.
You just messed up a lot of people because they're like, "What in the heck
hell's
is LimeWire?"
I say you download it. Who cares? Screw you, Metallica. We're going back against it. And you can find my work at MySpace. You'd be one of my 3 friends joining me, and these 3. But
was it Tom that was like the friend that everybody had?
Yes.
Tom.
Yeah. Everybody had Tom. So
that's right.
Let's go from the inside, the defensive line, to the outside of the line, or the outside linebacker, edge rusher. It doesn't have a specific name. It has multiple names. And if it has multiple names, does it have any relevant name? It's difficult to rank outside linebackers, as we've talked earlier. But Mike, who are you picking at outside linebacker? It's me versus you this week.
Hold on. Is it possible? Let's hold on. I'm going to try this real quick. If anybody is, okay, here we go.
This should be good.
So I'm gonna give a peek behind the curtain here.
Should I be sharing something?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to.
The fact that there's no curtain here at all, I'm kind of scared.
I know. Something tells me you're getting a sneak preview of something very interesting.
So here's what I wrote for
Go back down. Right.
For outside linebacker. So I'm just gonna say, I'll just go first. If you're looking, one matchup actually intrigues me, and you know what? I didn't even write anything up, so you know what? I think Nate, you're probably gonna get me anyway. But if you like revenge game narratives, Zadarius Smith against his old team.
I mean, so here's
the
hard thing. Go ahead.
Green Bay's offensive line is already a little banged up. Bakhtiari is always dealing with something, and I know Aaron Rodgers is good, but I don't know. It seems like Zadarius Smith is going to be playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder.
Jorge, what were you gonna say?
No, I'll wait till you guys are out there because I actually had a Vikings question I wanted to bounce around everybody, but it can wait.
Okay. I honestly would always concede to TJ Watt
when it comes to any of these because, well, TJ Watt he's the only person that I have in my defensive line top 10 and my linebacker top 15. And actually I bounce back and forth to TJ Watt. Even within my top 20, he's still the only person just simply because that's how game changing of a player he is. The fact of the matter is it gets scary at the linebacker position based on the different scoring formats you can play in. More of the super heavy tackle leagues, of course, might not benefit him as much. But then again, he's getting, if he's going to get you 2.5 sacks every damn game, that's, hyperbole. We get the idea. But if there's a person at the outside linebacker position who I think could do both, finish as a defensive line 1, as well as a linebacker 1, I love the matchup for Joey Bosa this week. I know in our talk earlier, we're not 100% certain, at least I'm not 100% certain, if he's going to line up on the left or the right side. If he lines up on the left side, the matchup is excellent. If he lines up on the right side, the matchup is not as excellent. Colton Miller is going to be opposite if he does switch. This new 3-4 scheme, though, that they're doing, the one thing that I haven't determined is if you're Brandon Staley and, well, defensive coordinators, obviously more important than just the head coach in that decision, but do you go with old tried and true and bring in Khalil Mack to play a little bit different of a position than he's used to? Or do you just say, here's Khalil coming in, take your old position and let Joey Bosa? My reasoning for keeping Bosa lined up the way he likes on the left side is that it was mentioned that Khalil Mack, they want to have in on pass run or on run stopping plays. They want to use his ability to stop the run. And the Raiders predominantly ran to that side more times than to the left side. That is about 56% of the time last year. Doesn't mean that's what they're going to do this year. It's a whole new regime, new offensive scheme, new situation. But that's all I have to go off of. The other things I have to go off of is Joey Bosa is a beast. And the addition of Khalil Mack. One of those two, I should have said Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack is my pick. I should have taken both since Mike took the cheat code and took TJ Watt. He took the Bo Jackson on Tecmo Bowl. So I just have to take the New York Giants and hope that
I took the Bo Jackson Tecmo Bowl cheat code and the double dribble 3-pointer in the corner.
Yeah, exactly. And, so I'm trying to battle that with John Dowd, the Barry Bonds fill-in, and hope to hit a home run. And if you want to do so, 29% win rate, 14% pressure rate, and the fact that despite Derek Carr having this ability to get rid of the ball fast, and they're saying, he'll rely on Renfro and Adams and Waller to get rid of it quickly, he was still the 5th most sacked quarterback last year. So, I mean, there is a chance that, and that was with Leatherwood, we know. So that's probably the biggest reason. But I don't think they got much better with Jermaine Elomunio and Lester Cotton on the left-hand side there. So, or the right-hand side, I'm sorry. So, Joey Bosa, I think, is in line for, I'm going to give him, depending on how we're ranking, or who's keeping track, I'm going to give him 1.5 sacks this week. That's my case.
So, quick, Mike and Jorge, if you're picking between Joey and Khalil.
If I'm picking between Joey and Khalil, I'm probably taking Bosa.
See, I'm going to go Khalil. I think I'd rather have Khalil Mack, especially if he's playing against the run.
Yep, I'm going Khalil too. And in my rankings, I had them 15 and 16 back to back. And listening to Mike a minute ago, and I was kind of waiting to see if somebody mentioned it. I know it's been a minute, right? But this is kind of a revenge game for Mac too, going back against the old team. If they focus on Bosa, Mac's going to have a big day, I believe.
Yeah, can they both succeed this week? And Hollywood, by your rankings, you say yes, because clearly you wouldn't put them back to back. The only reason you put them back to back is to hedge your bet. And that doesn't do any good for anybody. That's, but that is a common practice when there's two good ends, knowing that one could feed off the other. I mean, there were plenty of matchups last year that I can remember where Sam Hubbard had the worst of the two matchups. And as a result, he had a big game because Trey had much more of the attention. that'll be an interesting narrative to follow this year with both, with the Raiders, with Max now having, Chandler Jones, with the Chargers. Son of a bitch. You know what we're talking about the entire AFC West. It's like, oh my God, oh no, what's going to happen? So it was compelling. Maybe we'll look and determine how outside linebacker, how we figure this out for the Oklahoma going forward. But for the next matchup, Hollywood and Jorge. Hollywood, let's start with you. Who you taking the side of at inside linebacker?
Yeah, I was kind of going in the same direction Jorge was, so I'll save that for when we get to his. So I went with Christian Kirksey for Houston. He's the linebacker 20 this week overall at Fantasy Pros. I actually have him at I can't find him. Anyway, I've moved it since then. I've actually got him right inside the top 20. I moved it a little bit ago before we hopped on. So, but last year they faced Indy twice, right? That's who they've got this week. Season open divisional game. It's going to feature one of the league's best running backs, right? The Russian champion, Jonathan Taylor. In 2 games last year, he had 46 carries for 288 yards. So the opportunities for Kirksey to make plays, especially against the run, they're going to be there, right? That volume is going to be there. And he's gotten better. Now, I know he's had some injury issues, and he only played a couple games, I think it was 3 years ago. But he's dropped his missed tackle rate for 2 consecutive seasons if you take out that year. He's went from 15-7 all the way down to 17-9. So if he can improve that again with the volume that he's fixing to see, I think it's a no-brainer. And if you look back last year, the last 2 games, he played 100% of the snaps, 62 and 68. He had 9 and 8 tackles. And if you even went back to the start before that, 100% snaps, 61. He had 10 tackles. So he had 27 tackles in those 3 starts. That's 9 per game. That's pretty good volume. Or production, not volume. That's pretty good production on what you're getting there. 9 tackles a game. You can't hardly beat that.
Hell, it's both. That's tackle volume. That's production. It's
right.
that's Christian Kirksey. Now, Mike, who are you lining up to take on? Who are you dueling with this Texan with?
I'm not dueling Hollywood. It would be Jorge that is dueling Hollywood.
Yeah, I'm dueling Hollywood. Well, that sounds bad. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm dueling, not doing. There we go. Okay. Anyhow, forget it. So this next pick I have here at linebacker, it was explicitly meant for you, Hollywood, because it's your team. It's one of your guys. Originally, I had David Long, and then as I was looking at my stats, I'm like, this is not the right play. His other teammate at inside linebacker and Zach Cunningham, I believe, is the play here for the Tennessee Titans. Last year, Cunningham was the LB6 in run stopping percentage, the LB2 in defensive overall, according to PFF. He was the LB16 in tackle rate amongst linebackers who played a minimum of 500 snaps last year. If you're worried about consistency with Zach Cunningham in 2020, he was the LB1 in tackle rate at 16.9%. He's always been a high volume tackler, whether he was in Houston or he pretty much picked up where he left off when he got to Tennessee. Coincidentally, when I was looking up the stats of both inside linebackers, both Long and Cunningham, Long is actually a better pass rusher at inside linebacker, which I found to be very interesting than actually in terms of grading out being being a tackler versus a pass rusher. But it's definitely Cunningham for me. I've always been concerned with Cunningham with his solo to assist ratios. I always thought, well, man, this guy's just going to have to rack up a lot of tackles in order for him to, be somewhat of fantasy relevant. And he does. He does. So he's one of those rare exceptions at the linebacker position where you can kind of like turn a blind eye to the solo to assist ratio and just focus on the fact that his total tackle numbers are just astronomical. So I think this week going against a Giants team that they want to get Saquon going. This Giants team wants to get this running game going. This is a perfect opportunity for the Titans to unleash Zach Cunningham. And so that's why I'm going with him this week.
Interesting. Cunningham last year with 34 pass rush snaps. Christian Kirksey with 33. Look at that little narrative there. But I'm not the one judging this. Mike, I will kick it back to you. Now I will give you a role and a job to do. Settle this duel.
Honestly, if I was 100% sure that Zach Cunningham would be a 3-down guy, it would probably be Cunningham, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. As soon as he fell out of favor in Houston when he went to Tennessee, in week 14 against Pittsburgh, he had 67% of the snaps, week 15, 73%, week 16, 65, and week 17, 65. Tennessee ran single linebacker packages about 16% more than the average. So if they're going to be running single linebacker 20% of the time, 25% of the time, it's Cunningham that's probably going to be coming off the field because David Long is the 3-down guy and he's the play caller. So if that's going to be the case, I think Cunningham's tackle numbers could be inconsistent. He could kind of have that Jermaine Pratt type production where 1 week he has 10 tackles, another week he has 2, another week he has 8, another week maybe he has 4. So, I mean, in terms of between Kirksey and Cunningham, I mean, I'm going to take the guy with the snap volume and the 3-down role, and that's going to be Kirksey.
Gotcha. I'll tell you this is I have Kirksey as my LB11 this week in the matchup against Indy. So I was right on board with choosing a player. But I'll tell you the one thing about Jorge, your argument is that I had Cunningham as my LB33 going in. And I think there's a case to be made that I move him ahead of some of these other secondary linebackers like Matt Milano. And I have him behind Tay Crowder right now. Is that Cunningham or Tay Crowder? Mike.
Again, I'm kind of going with volume.
Crowder.
And I'm probably going to go Crowder because I'm thinking he's got the volume. Yeah. And again, Derrick Henry is probably going to be tackling Derrick Henry. Not very much, but probably have some misses, but he'll be able to take him down. So again, I'm kind of I go with the volume and the snap volume. So
that's fair.
That I want my guys on the field as much as possible. Now, if Cunningham comes out, has 80-85% of the snaps, great. I'm that's fine. But as of right now, I'm kind of going by with what I see. They, Tennessee did really change things up from last year to this year. So that's kind of what I'm going on.
Gotcha. Well, they're super thin at linebacker because they actually on their depth chart that they released, or with the unofficial one, all they have is Chance Campbell, a rookie, and Dylan Cole to back up David Long and Cunningham. That's it. So unless they do something with the big nickel or those 3 safety looks like they like to do, or maybe try to utilize all these corners that they've got with Molden and Farley and on that, I think Cunningham's going to be a 3-down guy.
Yeah.
Now, how much, I don't know. I mean, there may be series where he's not, but based on what's behind him, I don't see a real threat. I kind of wish. But
did they trust the defensive backs though? But do they trust the defensive back or another safety on the field over Cunningham? And that's just my question.
That'll be a big question because they really, really, really like Roger McCreary, and they've got him listed as a starter. Actually,
he's starting
on the opposite side. Elijah Molden would be one because he played some of that type of a role last year a little bit. They really like him, so they like these corners and these safeties. So I'm kind of with you on that. I kind of wish Jorge had kept David Long like he initially had, because I almost went with Zach Cunningham there, and I thought, well, I don't want to have 2 Titans right there, but I think it would have been a good debate if we'd have left it like that.
You could have had the clash of the Titans, man. You could have had
terrible, but beautiful at the same time. Jorge, sounds like you might have been on the wrong side of the gun for that duel. But here's your chance at redemption. You get me, an easy target, just kind of stumbling in from the pub or whatever, the saloon, I guess is what it would have been from back then. That's fitting. I mean, no offense, Oklahoma, but it seems like a state that still would have a saloon somewhere. So, Jorge, I'll let you take the lead here at defensive back. Who you putting in the chamber?
I'm going with my top three guy. My rankings: Kyle Duggar, Fantasy Pros ECR defensive back 20. Last year, first in tackle rate among safeties, playing 500 snaps or more. Played 92.1% of the time off ball. Ranked number one in run stopping percentage. He's basically acting like another linebacker for the New England Patriots here. Even when playing in coverage, he allowed below 10 yards per reception. So he can make plays in coverage or he can make plays at the line of scrimmage, but he's been mostly playing in the box, which is great for your tackle upside there. The big knock on him is his missed tackle percentage, which has been a problem for him the past couple seasons, but it's been getting better each season. So, like last I checked, players can get better at something that they're bad at. And they're going against a Dolphins team this week that I know they got Tyreek Hill. I know they got Jalen Waddle, huge Jalen Waddle fan. But let's remember the coaching tree here where this guy's coming from Shanahan. They like to run the ball. They have a plethora of running backs. They're probably going to cycle into rotation. I'm not a huge fan of Chase Edmonds. I think they work in Edmonds and Mostert a lot this week and during the season. In any situation, in any event, this is going to be, I think, a run-heavy game for the Dolphins, and that's just right up Kyle Duggar's alley.
Interesting. That's you brought up the one area that I was concerned on my side, which is with Brandon Jones. If there's one knock against Brandon Jones, it has been his missed tackle rate. And since I would agree with you 100%, players can get better. Therefore, it'd be hard to defend the fact that Brandon Jones can't get better at his missed tackle rate as well. So I think we're on par with both of those two concerns. The one thing that Brandon Jones does better than, anybody else in the NFL is rush the quarterback. The one thing that New England Patriots have had issues with over the last 2 years, realistically, is a cohesive offensive line. I know that sounds like blasphemous because we think of the New England Patriots as having this great offensive line and the ability to get rid of the ball, prevent sacks, and do the interior things right. But since Dante Scarnecchia retired, it's kind of been a rebuilding effort now at that offensive line. He was the offensive line coach for the Patriots for, 7 years amongst a couple different stints. And now who is in charge of the offensive line? Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia should be enough for a mic drop right there, and I should just quit because I think we will all agree that there's not much that Matt Patricia has done properly short of maybe the defensive side of the ball. But let's look at last year, week 18, season high tackles for Brandon Jones, 8 against New England. Break down his season when he was getting significant snap share. And you look at a span over 50 snaps from weeks 8 through 16, 17, 18, when he finally started seeing, they took full advantage of his usage in Miami. And he was a DB9 overall. I think the run stopping was underrated because of the missed tackle rate. But there's nobody on New England with running the ball that I think is shifty enough. Maybe Ramondre, but Ramondre is going to be when they're, that change of pace realistic. I still think they want to pound it with Damian Harris. And I'm not really too concerned with Brandon Jones not being able to slow down Damian Harris. The key is going to be the difference make in the total sack production. And especially if you're using FIF scoring, QB hits. And again, who was at the top of almost all of our charts? Brandon Jones when it comes to FIF scoring. So ironic that the two will be matched up against each other. I think that it's going to be leaning Brandon Jones' way, but I'll let you guys be the judge of that.
And by judge, you mean who?
Oh, I don't know. Whichever. I can't appoint somebody because then it feels like I'm playing favorites. So I'll let both of you two comment. Jorge or Hollywood and Mike. Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Hollywood start.
Lead the way.
Or Mike start.
I mean, I like both. I have a concern on Jones, and I've got a concern with Duggar. My concern on Jones is that he wasn't sent on any pass rush snaps during the preseason. So that is my concern. I'm hoping that doesn't carry over, because that was one of the reasons why I wrote him up as a breakout, because he got to the quarterback at a really efficient rate last year. Mm-hmm. And then during the preseason, Duggar did a lot of rotating. And you know how Bill loves fantasy football and wants to make sure all of our fantasy players are on the field and make sure that we're all getting our fantasy points.
Exactly.
So, but I don't know. I've got Kyle Duggar ranked above Brandon Jones this week, so I'm going to continue to go with Duggar, and then just hope that these rotations don't. I'm hoping it's maybe a preseason thing where he's just kind of figuring things out, testing new things, and I'm hoping at least Duggar stays on the field at least 80 to 85% of the snaps.
Womp, womp, womp.
Hollywood.
Yeah, this was kind of close. I mean, I have Duggar at 18 this week, and I had Jones at 21. So 3 spots, right? I mean, that's about as close as you can be, really. I do think Duggar kind of plays, as Jorge mentioned, he's kind of more of that linebacker type role sometimes, where Jones is not particularly that. And then I kind of go with what Mike said. I've got Duggar higher, so I think for me, I'm going to stay with that mold this week and see where we're at going from there.
I think we got another Twitter poll on our hands here, Nate.
Hey, I think that could be. I mean, and honestly, that should be or could be or maybe will be just a really good question that people might have to face. I mean, that's a legitimate situation where you know, as your DB2, you have Duggar and Brandon Jones. Obviously, the scoring format could affect that. I think a tackle heavy format, I'm going to lean Duggar for sure. Fantasy and frame scoring, I'm probably going to lean Brandon Jones. But Mike's point about the pass rush snaps is definitely fair, because I see that he had 1 pass rush snap. But again, that was in 31 snaps, which is a 3.2% pass rush rate, which is not going to be good. The thing is, with Miami, they have made it a point to state that they're not going to change his role. Now, I don't, again, if everything was based on them telling us what it meant and we had to listen to coach speak, well, guess what? Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins would both be on all of our teams. We would have all kinds of different, narratives, and we would be more trusting. But unfortunately, we're not. We're jaded, we're biased, and we're just disgruntled at coach speak. But you know what? We're not. We're not a full 24 hours away from football. We're less than that.
Can't wait.
I know it, and I can't either. And we will get some answers, guys. If there was one IDP question that you wanted, that you can't wait to find a quote unquote early answer to, is there a narrative, or is there something you want to see tomorrow in the game? Mike, I'll start with you. Anything that you want to pay attention to?
Yeah, I want to see Ernest Jones's usage rate and how many snaps he's going to get.
Love it. Hollywood?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going too. That's kind of the glaring question, right there.
It's a big one. Jorge, anything different from you?
Honestly, not for this game, but it goes back to something that I was going to bring up earlier in the show, and when Mike brought up Zadarius Smith. I'm very curious to see how Danielle Hunter adapts to being a standing edge rusher versus somebody who gets his hand in the dirt and goes after the quarterback.
That's the thing that I'm super excited but I see Danielle Hunter as being such adept to being able to do both, because he has speed and power. He's not just a one trick pony, if you will. I want to see the rotation tomorrow from the Bills, if they still have that, or if Gregory Rousseau or if Epinesa, probably more Rousseau than anybody, can actually get 80% of the snaps. Because, like I said, when you talk about the elite pass rushers, you're about an 80 to 85% and up in terms of total snaps that you want to see. And I don't think Buffalo will get there, but it'll be intriguing to see how close they can get. And so, guys, I can't think of it. Is there anything else you need to get off your chest? Mike,
who you got tomorrow? Rams or Bills tomorrow?
Bills.
Mike?
I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go Rams. Is Tre'Davious White hurt?
Yep. Yeah, he is. Poyer's still a little banged up.
So I think I'm gonna go Bills or Rams. I'm gonna go Rams.
Hollywood.
I'm leaning towards the Bills. It's close, but that's where I'm leaning to.
Eesh, man, if I am I want to take. I gotta say, I'm gonna go with the Bills. I do. I think that it's really close. I think
Mike's
who's
the lone
favorite?
wolf.
I mean, no, Jorge is.
I'm not afraid of Bills Nation.
No, Mike is. He's the one who's footing on the
Mike
Rams.
is.
I went Rams.
Oh, you said oh yeah, okay. No, I think it's gonna be
So the Bills are favored. They're +2.
No, that would be they're the underdog.
Yeah,
if they're a plus, they're the underdog.
I mean, -2. I'm sorry.
Oh,
-2.
Gotcha.
They are favored -2,
They are
and the
favored.
over/under is 51.5.
It's gonna be great, guys. I look forward to talking to chatting with you guys both as we go along. Make sure to get all your lineups set. Make sure that if you have any questions from an IDP, you can find all of us. None of your stuff's at the bottom of the screen, guys. I gotta pretend that I know your Twitter handle. It's Mike Wohlert at Mike_Wohlert, at Hollywood Titan, at Jorge B. Edwards, and at Nate Markham. You can also find us at Shoot the Gap Pod. We will see you next Thursday, Wednesday, whatever. See you both.